Alrighty, everybody, this is Alicia Alt, founder of Level Up Score. Thank you for joining us today on this Tuesday top tip. Today's top tip is why I close my business before New Year's. And I'm going to explain to you why. And this is a little bit different than my normal Tuesday top tips. We're talking about business development, things like that. But I'm going to say something that might sound dramatic at first, but I promise you it's one of the most profitable decisions I make every single year. And I'm going to show that to you. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint slides because I started doing that, and it seems to be that you guys like my PowerPoint slides. So let me go ahead and bring that up here. Bear with me just one second. Slideshow. Okay. So why I close my business before the new year. Okay, so if you thought that I closed Level Up Score permanently, that was not what I did. But we did close the business in terms of we have our operating staff there. But I want to talk about why I closed my business in terms of me coming outside of that business so that I can actually grow in the new year. So I'm going to say some dramatic stuff here, but I think you're going to understand why it's the most profitable thing I ever did was closing my business. So after today's live, I actually will be offline for the rest of the week until Monday of next week. And this is my time to reestablish myself. And so we'll talk about that. So before the new year starts, I intentionally close my business, not because it failed, not because I'm burned out, not because I'm quitting. I close my business because unclosed business kills momentum. So what do I mean by unclosed business? We'll talk about that. January actually does not reward hustle. So those of you who think I'm going to hustle through the end of the year, those who are taking a break, they're going to lose out because I'm going to have all the business. If you are intentionally closing your business, I can guarantee you that those people who do that will actually be way ahead of the people who did not. So January rewards preparation. So I'm going to say this. This is my quote for today. The people who take time to close their business will outperform the people who don't by the end of January. So I don't mean that they're going to outperform by the end of the year versus what other people did who didn't close. I mean that they're going to do it in January. So what do you think they're going to do in February, March, April, May? They're going to be so far ahead of their competition or whomever they're working with because of what they're doing and closing their business down here in December. And so, I don't know if anybody else has had this thing, but have you ever like gotten to January and felt like, oh my goodness, January is so hectic and chaotic? You were so busy with vacations or the holidays, and then you get into January and now you got more debt. You've been off so much that now you have a lot more work to do. Your clients are flooding in because it's the New Year's, their New Year's resolutions. Gyms have this problem. Credit professionals have this problem in January and February. And so if you do drop I'm guilty of this in the comments because I think this is a struggle a lot of us have. And I got a really awesome opportunity back in December of last year. So when everyone's talking about setting their goals for, January 1 and everything, I got on a coaching call with Jesse Itzler. And if you guys don't know him, he is an entrepreneur. He used to be a rapper, which is kind of interesting. But he has a lot of different companies that he owns. His wife is Sarah Blakely, who is the owner of Spanx. And so you probably know who she is, most of you girls at least. I know that who she is. But Jesse Itzler didn't talk about in this coaching call that he did. He didn't talk about goals. He didn't talk about vision boards. He talked about closure. And it was really the first time that I ever heard anybody go that route. So you hear a lot of people that, will talk about, oh, we need to do our goal setting. We need to plan for the future. We need to do that. We need to have visional boards. And all of that is great. But his perspective was something very different that for me was an eye opener. And it really made a big change in my 2025. So this was, again, I went to his coaching call to end of 2024. It really changed everything I did up until that, moving into 2025. And I had huge strides in 2025 because of it. So I want to share those things with you. There's 5 top things that I did in 2024 to set me up for a successful 2025. Really excited to say we had huge successes. in my businesses, in my personal life, and everything by doing these 5 things. So I encourage you to listen in on these 5 things and really take note on them and actively do them would be a great thing. So high performers don't stack years on top of unfinished years. They close chapters first. And so that's kind of the moral of this part is like, how do we start closing out loops or closing out chapters before we move into a new year, dealing with those same things, the same chaos before that new year comes. So, really excited to talk to you about that. All right. So, thinking of this, and be honest, how many of you feel like you're still carrying things from last year into 2025 and that you figure you're probably going to be carrying those into 2026? And that's realistically what a lot of us do. We're carrying things and carrying, yeah, right? So we're constantly carrying things. So if you don't intentionally reset, you don't get a fresh start, right? You just get a calendar with the same old problems over and over again. And that's the definition of insanity, right? And so I want to talk about some things that you can do that are easy and quick, actually. They're not like I'm not going to give you revolutionary things that you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I've never heard this concept before. But I think what you're going to learn is some things that you probably already know you should do, but you're just not doing. And so I encourage you to do that. So the first one is closing loops. And so an open loop is anything unfinished that your brain is still tracking, something that's using up your energy. So this might be things like your email box, right? So type inbox in the comments if you think your email, it just completely stresses you out. Okay. So one of the things that Jesse Itzler said is that he likes to clear everything out. So like delete, delete, delete. Like what do I not need in my life? This is a really important part. And so he would go into his inbox and look at all the things that he's getting emails from and unsubscribe to things that are no longer needed in his life. You know, we all probably subscribe to things and then later we're like, we don't need this stuff, right? I get a lot of spam emails and stuff like that. So I took him up on that and I went through my email. And let me tell you before I say this, I was like, that's not a big deal. I just go in and I delete things all day long, right? It's not a big deal. It takes me a couple seconds to delete things. Well, what I learned after doing what I'm going to tell you is that that was actually the process of deleting things was taking away energy from the things I should have been paying attention to. And what I mean by that is not just the fact that I was deleting it, but I had to scrub through each of these emails to determine whether or not I should delete them or not, right? And sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I'll read this later, right? Again, taking up mental energy that I really didn't need to read that later, right? And so then it's all my thoughts in my brain constantly like, oh, I really should read that email. It's in my inbox. I got 50 things in my inbox. You know, if I just read that, it's one less thing. But I didn't even need to have it on my radar at all. So what I recommend is that you go in your email box. This is a quick, easy one for closing loops and really look at your emails and see what you need to unsubscribe to, right? I'll give you an example that is really big for me. I love, love, love learning. So I subscribe to a lot of different coaches and different things like that. And Alex Hormozy made a comment to me, which I thought was interesting. He said, have one coach for a season. Everybody has some good information to provide to you, but focus on one coach for a season. Number one, that doesn't cloud your energy, but also it keeps you focused on one topic or one direction that you're going in. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. You're basically telling me just to keep you and not listen to anybody else. But that wasn't the message that he was giving. The message he was giving is right now, I need to be coached by Alex Hormozy for what I'm doing. But later, I'm going to outgrow that, hopefully, because I listened and I developed. And I need to listen to another person in a different perspective, a different way of doing things, right? But if I have a lot of different communications from a lot of different coaches, then it's just a lot of energy that I'm spending on thinking of all these different things. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So I unsubscribed to a lot of those things, and I would put one of those emails in my do later email box so I didn't forget about that particular coach that I liked, you know. Um, Looking at the tools you're using, like what tools are you using for your business or your personal life, either budgeting tools, software, um, video subscriptions, right? Streaming services, and looking at those and saying, okay, is it really something that I need in my life? Is that something that was old me who needed that, new me doesn't need that, and looking at how we can, maybe unsubscribe to those things as well, and it can save you money. Last year when I did that, I saved myself over $1,000 a month by unsubscribing to a lot of different things that I was paying monthly. And I'm a coach, I'm a financial coach. I was paying for stuff I didn't need and wasn't using for several months, right? And so I think we don't realize that because everything's a subscription now. But like really kind of going through that and seeing what is not useful. So, how many of you might be paying at least one tool that you're not really using, right? And type guilty if you are, because I'm currently right now guilty of that. I'll do the trials for different things, for different movie apps because I want to watch a certain movie, and then I don't turn the trial off, and months later I'm realizing I'm paying for this service and I haven't watched another movie, right? So just kind of consider that looking at that. Clients, this is a big one. This is a little scary for some people, but are there clients that you're taking on in your business that are really just draining you, right? The biggest example I can give you, because I hear it a lot when I'm coaching different organizations, is they'll say, well, I have these clients that they refuse to pay for credit monitoring, so I'm letting them use Credit Karma, right? Because it's free. Maybe that's something you stop doing. Maybe you have decided that, hey, that drains me because them using Credit Karma instead of my credit monitoring is actually causing me problems with my business, right? Because it's making me work harder. It's breaking up my normal system of operations and how we do things. And then we're having different things doing for different clients, right? And the journey should be consistent with everybody. So maybe you're looking at that. Maybe you're looking at, hey, I need a niche down in my business and I don't want to take on all clients for all things, right? So some things like that you can look at for closing the loops. Emails that you need to get back to, conversations that you need to have. All of those are ways that you can close those loops. So I want to talk about some personal loops because I think that uh, we talk a lot about business, which is great, because we all want to be successful in our business, which helps our personal life. But I think sometimes people will say, well, my business life is going really great. My personal life sucks, or my personal life sucks, but my business is going really great. But the honest truth is, I don't believe that that's even possible. You are one person and everything is going to be affected, right? So if your business is doing good, um, and your personal life sucks, your business could be doing better if your personal life didn't suck, right? And vice versa. And so I really believe that you really have to close loops in your personal life too. For instance, are there health appointments that you've delayed, right? Are you delaying making healthy moves in your life? Financial things that you might be avoiding, conversations you haven't had that you need to have. So maybe in the comments, you might type one thing that either business or personal that you know that you need to close before the year ends, right? There might be relationships you just actually got to end, right? Because they're draining you. So unfinished business is invisible drag. Think of it that way. I know of a couple emails in my inbox right now that I say are really important to me, but I haven't gotten back to them, right? And so I think I have 71 emails right now that I need to get back to, and that's one of the loops that I need to close, right? I have a personal email mailbox that I have to reorganize, right? And so thinking about not just in your business life, but what are some personal loops that you can close out? Okay, step two. So I told you I was going to give you 5 steps for the new year. Step two is delete before you delegate. So one thing that I hear a lot is people are like, I'm just going to hire help to help me with all these things. But a lot of times when we hire help, we actually complicate our systems more. Number one, we have to now train this person that we hired. Number two, maybe they're doing stuff that doesn't even need to be done. We're just giving busy work to get busy work, right? So before you ever hire someone, one thing that I really recommend is you look at your business in all the aspects and look at, do I need to be doing this anymore? Is my business process too complicated? So I'll give you an example of a personal thing that happened to me. So this was back, if you guys are been in the industry for a while, back in 2008 was the fall of the mortgage industry, right? Housing crisis. You guys probably all know that even if you weren't in the industry. So before that housing crisis, I was obviously in the industry for a long time and I knew it was coming. It was clear that it was coming. We were doing loans for people who shouldn't get loans, quite frankly. And so I saw the need and I started thinking, okay, I'm going to get I'm going to get really expert knowledge in how to do loss mitigation, how to do foreclosure prevention, how to do short sales, how to do loan modifications. And quite honestly, I got really, really good at it. So it became part of my business practice before 2008 and for years after 2008. But here's what I want you to know. Prior to me deciding that I was going to add all these services to my simple service of helping you get from where you're at to getting a home loan, I was making just as much money and working less hours than when I added all this other stuff. That's not a good feeling. So, what I mean by that, when I looked at my year before I got complicated, what my revenue was, year after I got the year after I got more complicated, right, added more services, and I looked at their two revenue numbers and they were the same. But the difference between these two places that I was at, this one was very simple. I had a clear journey. Everybody went through the same journey. Everything was clear. I had assistants who helped me with all those things. Very easy, right? I had a life. This section, I was working mass amount of hours. I couldn't charge a lot for the service, even though the service required a lot more work. And I didn't have a life. And I couldn't teach someone. It was so complicated of a process that I couldn't teach someone to help me do the things. And so I was stuck doing the things. So more work, more stress, more anxiety, more clients, same amount of money. So maybe consider that. Look at your processes and say, hey, is this needed in my business structure? Could I make more money actually if I take this out and just focus on this one thing, right? Alex Hormozy had a lot of people step up and ask him questions, and he would ask him questions like, okay, so what are you doing in your business? Well, I have this program and this program and this program and this program. And a lot of people came back with 5 different things that they do inside their business that they monetize on. And he said to each person that said that, you have 4 things too many. And I thought, wow, that's genius, right? 4 things too many. He's like, because if you can focus on one, you'll make more money than having to focus on 5 different things that you sell, right? And I thought that's really genius. Now, he's not saying that later on you don't add something in, but his point was until this one drives really well, and I've talked about this before, like $1 million business, then there's no reason to add a second thing, right? Because you'll actually dilute this one, and then you're not making $1 million with either one, right? And it was pretty you think about that and you sit back and think about that, it's like, yeah, that's so true. Like, if you can consolidate your focus, you're going to be better off and you're going to make more money and it's going to simplify and you can analyze your processes easier to see what works and what doesn't work, change things, add things, remove things, right? So I highly encourage you to look at your business in terms of, does it even need to exist? Does what I'm doing even need to exist? Is there a way that I can simplify my business? I like to say more steps don't mean more value, right? So if you have a journey for your clients and you have like, oh, my onboarding is like 5 different steps to onboard you, that doesn't mean more value for your clients. Most people don't like to do a lot of things, so they don't want to have 5 steps in their onboarding. So how can we simplify that? I remember a couple months ago, I had a lady that I was coaching and she asked me to look at her website. And I want to first say that her website was beautiful. Her images were beautiful. She was beautiful. So she attracted people to her, right? But I wasn't going to buy anything from her. And I've been in the business for 23 years. And I looked at her website and I called her and I said, hey, I've been in the business for all these years and I wouldn't even know which product of yours I should buy for my needs. She had 12 different options to work with her. And it was like this, and then you can add this on, or you can add this on, or you can just do this, or you can just do this, or, I mean, and it was very complicated. And I said, scratch all that. Most of that stuff can be put into one and be one big offer rather than having all these add-ons. And I think people think, oh, I have all these add-ons so I can make more money. And I can assure you that that's not the case. Okay. So really look at that. All right. Number 3, the third step is know what you want. So I don't think many people do this at all. And this is something I do every year. So I was Alfred here that's on the live here with me on Zoom. I was just telling him right before we went live. Every year, I and my husband leave for a day or two. And we literally will sit down and decide what we want for our lives, how we want our lives to look, what vacations we're going to go on, how we're going to spend our money, all of these things. And I call it design your future self. So the first thing we do before we meet together to talk about these things is we actually set time aside with ourselves. So he's by himself, I'm by myself, I have my notebook, he has his notebook, and we literally start to write down what we want for our life. And I'm talking more personal than business because it's going to flow into each other. But like down to the nitty gritty, like really specific. Where do you live? What kind of furniture do you have? What kind of environment do you live in? What time do you wake up? What do you do when you wake up? How do you speak? How do you walk? How do you carry yourself? How do you do your hair? What clothes are you wearing? Like, how much do you weigh? Like, all of those details about your personal self, your future personal self, what you want to bring into your own life now. And then also, you could do that as a business leader. Like, how does your future self make decisions for your business? What do you tolerate? What do you not tolerate? How do you protect your time? So, looking at all those different things. And, on the screen, I put in 30 minutes. But I really believe if you want to deep dive in this, uh, you're writing for hours upon hours. And I actually advise people to go to a hotel for 24 hours by themselves and just write and write and write. Who are you? What do you want? Most of us don't take the time to do that. If we're honest, I didn't for a long time. It wasn't until I had a coach by the name of Bob Proctor. Some of you might know or have heard of Bob Proctor. He's since passed away, but he was my coach for a year. And he's the one that told me, he's like, you're going to go to a hotel and you're going to spend 2 days in a hotel room. No one's going to visit you. No one's coming over. You're not doing anything except to get food. So I sat in this hotel room for 2 days with a notebook, and he asked me to write everything in detail, what my house looked like, what each room looked like, draw it, talk about it, write it. It was hard at first, but as I started doing it, I started flowing and I got more and more clear about what I wanted in my life and who I was. And I don't think we take time to do that because the life is so loud, right? We all can probably say that it's loud. We got a lot of people giving us their opinion on how our life should be, right? And we haven't even sat down to decide what our own opinion is. So I honestly believe even before you get a coach, like sit down with yourself and find out what your own opinion is about yourself and what you want for your life. And that way you get the right coach to help you and be your accountability partner, right, on that journey. But do that for your personal self in your life, in your business life, 30 minutes at least. But if you can get away for an entire day or even 2 days like I do, it's so beneficial for your life. It really helps with that direction. And then we come together as husband and wife and we share that with each other and we start planning. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But designing your future self. Now, this is where we talk about the fourth one. It's accountability part. It's about saying out loud what we're wanting to do. So again, this is where I sit down with my spouse. We have a family meeting. We have team meetings with our different organizations, and we talk about what the goals are. We assign roles to whose role is it to get the job done, whose accountability for this person. This is really important. So every year, January 1 through March 30th, I do a 90-day alcohol free, so dry, whatever you want to call that. And I do it every year for a couple reasons. One is I have a personality that I don't like to be addicted to anything, right? And so I like to cause myself to stop doing a lot of different things. And alcohol is one of the things, but there's several things that I'll stop for the entire 90 days. Just to tell myself, like, I'm in control of myself. I'm in control of my body. I'm in control of my mind. I'm in control. And so that's my time of being in control. But also, if you think about this, those that are married, if you remember up until you got married, you like started working out all the time. You started eating really healthy. You wanted to be in the best shape of your life for your wedding, right? And so my anniversary is March 30th. So it just so happens to be 90 days from January 1. And so I kind of do that as like, hey, I'm going to work on being my best self for my spouse, for myself. And so the anniversary kind of highlights that for me. But in that process, I have to say it out loud. So I have to tell my spouse, I have to tell my kids, I have to tell my team what my goals are and what I'm doing. So in the instance of like not drinking alcohol, I would have to physically tell my friends and stuff, I don't drink alcohol. So two things that I'm doing there is I'm saying out loud. So I'm actually creating people to help me keep accountable, right? So what ends up happening after a month is my friends will say, "Oh, she doesn't drink. Get her an iced tea," right? So they help me be accountable, which is really great. But also it creates a new identity for me. Okay. And so for people, and I've been studying this a lot and will continue to study this, but what causes someone to be committed and not committed? So I've always had a pretty easy time of figuring out like how to turn on the commitment button in my life and be committed to something. But I've noticed that some people have a really hard time with that. So I've been studying like what causes commitment. And the one thing that I can tell you for sure, just looking at my own life and what causes me to be committed, is I identify as that person. So I will say, instead of saying, I'm not drinking right now, I say, I do not drink, right? I'm the kind of person that gets up in the morning at 3:30 in the morning and I go to the gym. That's who I am. So I say those words out loud and tell other people that's what I do. And that helps keep me accountable, number one, but I've changed my identity of who I am, right? You can't change your identity of who you are until you know who you want to be. So the whole future self thing is really important first. But consider that you want to say it out loud. Now, some of you might say, "Hey, I do have a really big goal, but if I say it out loud, people put me down for it or whatever." That's a little bit different story. If you have a really big goal that seems like an impossible goal, sometimes saying that out loud to someone could cause them to try to put into your mind that it's not doable. Okay. So there are some things that you're going to keep to yourself, but I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about maybe all the things that surround that that's going to help you be accountable for that big goal, right? If that makes sense. So some things you do want to keep quiet. But also, accountability isn't pressure, it's support. So you want to find the right kind of people to help you be accountable, not someone who's going to, you know, you failed to do the thing you said you're going to do. And so they tell you, "Oh, you really failed at that," and, put you down. They shouldn't be putting you down. It should be more supporting you. You fell down. How can I help lift you back up and get you back on track? Would be someone that would be your accountability partner. Okay, let me see where I was at. Oh, yeah. So the other thing I would say in this respect is you want to have your goals written down. A lot of people say that, but you've heard that before. Goals really need to be written down. They need to be reviewed with your team or whoever is associated with helping you reach that goal. And they need to be agreed upon. So if you have family goals or relationship goals or team goals within your business, it's not, I don't think you should make up the goals all on your own, go to your team and say, "Here's the goals for our company." You should really have this collaboration, this conversation. Like, here's what we're wanting to see for the future of the company. What are some ways that you think would help us get there? How can we do that? Collaborate with your team. You'll be surprised by doing that. They might come up with some ideas that you didn't even think of that might be better than the idea you had. That's happened to me many times. But also with your spouse and your family, because people really won't resist goals if they're a part of the goal. They resist goals because they're a surprise, right? And so if I go to my team and I say, "Hey, we're going to make $1 million this month," and they're like, "Well, we only usually make 100,000," then that might be a surprise for them. And then it blocks them from doing the things that they need to do to rise up to that new level. But if I had a conversation with them like, "Hey, the goal is we're going to really stretch ourselves, see how we can get to $1 million a month. Let's discuss how we can do that together and come up with a solution and plan together." But here's the other thing that I highly recommend: have the people sign it. So once the goal is written down, it's agreed upon, have everyone who's involved in that sign off that they're agreeing to it, that they're committed to it, and everyone has their role and what they're supposed to do. That's very, very clear. It's very powerful when you have a written and signed goals from everybody that's involved in it. So I really encourage you to do that. So type agreement if you've never actually written and had someone sign your goals with you. I bet a lot of us haven't. I still have mine from years ago hanging on my board. Don't you guys probably see this board over here, where I had my team sign one of my big goals, and it was actually a personal goal that I went to my team and we sat down and I talked to them about my personal goal because my personal goal was really important to my business goal, right? And so my team actually signed off on my goal and helped me stay accountable, which I think is really, really powerful for us to do. All right, last one. The fifth step is commitment. And I kind of talked about that a little while ago, right? What causes us to be committed to something? And there's a couple things. Number one is certainly identifying with that thing, right? I am a person who runs. I am a person who gets up at 3:30 in the morning. I am a person, you fill in a blank, right? So knowing who you want to be, who you are, coming back to this step and identifying yourself as that person. But then your calendar is so important. So last year, after I had that coaching call with Jesse Itzler, he was talking about how he already schedules out all his runs and everything before the new year starts. And I was like, okay, well, I want to start running again. I'll go ahead and commit to one 5K every single month. And so I went down on my calendar and I made that a point to put that on my calendar. And as you guys can see, all of these medals back here, I literally did at least one 5K every month of the year last year, starting in December of last year, actually in 2024. Was my first one that I committed to monthly. So that's actually 13 months of awards there. And then as that started to evolve, I started getting competitive in that I wanted to be, first place or standing on the third place block and then the second place and then the third place or first place. So you can see how commitment can and having this on your calendar can really help. I believe when we put it on our calendar, we make it a non-negotiable. And there's something about it being on our calendar. It shows that it's a priority for us. Be careful in this step though, because I know for myself, I can fill up a calendar really fast and then I can't stay committed to all the things. So focus on some core things, maybe one core thing. I think Jesse Itzler said he does one core thing every quarter for the three important areas of his life. And I might get that a little bit wrong, so I have to go back to my notes, but essentially you don't want to overload yourself with a lot of things because then we might fail just because there's just too much, right? So, but he does it in blocks of quarters, right? So this quarter is focusing on this quarter, and it might go along with your overall goal for 2026. So if my goal for 2026 for my business is to hit X amount of dollars in revenue, then I need to look at each quarter what that looks like, right? And maybe even break it down each month and what that looks like. But then what are the things that need to happen? What are the activities that need to happen? And those should be on the calendar. So you really need to sit down with your calendar and really put those on your calendar. This is, for me, one of the most fun parts about doing it is creating my calendar for the year. And what's really cool about that is now I've committed to it. I don't have to use brain power to think about what I'm going to do every day because it's already on my calendar. The priorities are on my calendar. Anything other than the priorities that I do, just bonus points, right? So it helps me not feel stressed out. It just gives me, I don't have to think about what's going to happen each day. So some things to think about in terms of that calendar is your health, right? Setting priorities for your health, setting priorities for your family, what I call CEO time. You need to be working on your business a lot, right? And so how do you schedule out at least, one day a month for CEO time, looking at your metrics, looking at how the business is doing, looking at you as a person and you as a leader and looking at what are some things that I need to improve on, right? Those are all things that you could be doing. Visibility. This is, last year, my whole theme for the whole 2025 was get loud. And so my mission for 2025 for my business and my personal life was to get loud about everything I was doing. And I mean, like my son, I'm wearing a shirt that says get loud right now. And he says, Mom, why do you want everybody to get loud? And I'm like, not loud like yelling, loud like visible. You know who I am. You know what I stand for. You know what I'm working towards and what I'm doing. And all my actions and all my movements are going to prove that. And so this became content on social media. So I was not doing social media before April of 2025. And I just started doing it. Not that my social media is blowing up by any means, but I found that social media became a very important part of my process. And I have grown a lot since then. And so visibility and whatever that means for you. I do think Alex Ramosi just said this the other day. Social media is your commercial today. It is your ads. It's everything. So if you're not on social media, I do encourage you to do that. It's easier now than it's ever been. And then recovery. You need to have those recovery breaks where it's just like time out, guys. We need to reassess, maybe spending time with your spouse, spending time with your family, going and doing something that's really interesting. Me and my family, right before Christmas, we went to St. Augustine for a Christmas break. And it was just such a great time to like start to end the year out, focus on family. We talked a lot. We had such a great time. We journaled together. We just kind of relaxed in the moment. And that was a really important recovery time for us because we know when we move into 2026, we've already had some family conversations. 2026 is going to be a huge year for us, but it's also going to be a full calendar year for us. And so we know we're going to have a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of times we're going to be doing a lot. And so we know that we have to have the recovery time. So we kind of appreciated that in December. And again, now we're going into the movement of how do we set ourselves up for 2026. So your calendar is your real value system. It reveals that what is really important to you, it'll show up on your calendar. So I usually can look at someone's calendar and look and see very clearly what's important to them. So if I look at their calendar and it's just filled up with consultations, then I know they're not valuing their time. I know that sounds weird, but if your calendar is full of consultations, then you're working in your business really hard. You're not valuing your time. You haven't realized how to automate things. You haven't assessed the system to see if it's broken. I'm sorry, if your calendar is full of consultations, you have a broken system because you don't need to do it that way. You don't need to pick up the phone. I can prove it to you. But this is what people do when they feel successful because they're busy, but they're not. So the person who can figure that piece out and figure out what's broken is going to surpass the person with the full calendar. So your calendar should have a lot of blanks in it, a lot of blanks for recovery time, a lot of blanks for thought time. I like to end the day with what I call wrap and trap. So what that means is that if I do have a full day of back-to-back appointments, which does happen, when at the end of that day, because I went back to back, I couldn't do the things that I promised in those meetings. I have a wrap and trap at the end of the day and look at what those meetings said. How do I get better at those meetings? How do I conserve my time better? Whatever that might be. How do I do my sales better? Whatever I did that day. But then also, what did I promise that I was going to deliver to people? And I work really hard to make sure I do deliver that evening before I end my day. So something to consider that could be on your calendar as well. Okay. People, I'm gonna say this again. I said this in the beginning because I'm telling you, I've seen it time and time again, and it's so true. But people who close their business now, and I mean today, right now, will outperform the people who don't by the end of January. So close your business. And I don't, guys, I know some of you are like, hey, I can't close my business. I got work to do. Somebody else should be doing that work. And if you're in the position that you're the person doing all the work, I think everyone's going to be okay if you take off the rest of today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, see everybody back next Monday. I don't think everything's going to fall apart, right? I really don't, because a lot of people right now are in that recovery mode themselves. They're either on vacation or they're just kind of tapped out. They're off work or whatever, and they're just relaxing. So they're probably not ready for you anyway. So, and I don't mean that you're closing your business and you're not being intentional about it. You're being intentional in that you're setting yourself up for the new year, right? So that you can be more successful. You're looking at your life. What talents or skills can I learn in 2026 that's going to help my business succeed? What things do I need to remove? Um, what things might be broken in my system? What things can I simplify in my system to make it actually better? When I stopped doing phone consultations, well, let me back up. I'll tell you a quick story. I won't be long, but when I first started my business, it was 23 years ago. Everything was face to face. So you came into my office, you sit down and chair in front of me. If you made it to your appointment, right? You know that drill. And then, I had to dress up, you had to dress up. We're all sitting at a table. We're spending hours just kind of a lot of small talk, building that rapport, and then we're getting down to business. But then when we got down to business, it was more of a conversation of where are you at? What are your goals? Where are you going to go? Blah, blah, blah. Let's look at your credit report. But I actually didn't do any work until after they left. So I couldn't scale that way, right? And so long story short, I had a coach and the coach said, you can't continue to do business this way if you want to actually scale your business. So you're going to have to start doing consultations over the phone, limit them to 30 minutes. And I thought, man, that's going to be hard. Nobody is going to buy from me if they can't like sit face to face with me and talk to me. right? I really believe that. But I believed my coach and I understood what he was saying. So I went ahead and started trying that out. And I found that it was so much better speaking to him on the phone because I could limit the amount of conversation that I was having, right? I didn't have to dress up. They didn't have to dress up. They didn't have to come driving to my office, blah, 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 blah. So I could spend 30 minutes with them on the phone, get them as a client, and then I can actually start working on their file, right? Not 2 hours or more, right? And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. But then when the whole hype with TSR came out, and let's be honest, TSR has been a law for a long, long time. We're just now talking about it. But when that hype came out and a lot of issues were happening with that, I was like, okay, you can't do your consultations over the phone. Oh, shoot. Same thing went through my head. Okay, well, if I can't talk to someone on the phone, there's no way they're going to buy from me because they can't talk to me on the phone, right? I need to be able to build rapport, know, like, and trust. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, I remember instantly thinking, you said that back when you were doing face to face. So is this really true, or is this some truth that you think is true? And so I decided that I was just going to stop doing phone consultations immediately. I just stopped. And I told myself, you're going to have to figure it out. And that's where, and some of you guys might be familiar with my class called Online Consultations, Mastering Online Consultations. If you're not and you want it, let me know and I'll send you the link. But that's where I decided I was going to do online consultations. And let me tell you what I found out. My online consultation took me 7 minutes. My closure rate went to almost 100%. And what I mean by that is the only people who didn't sign up after my online consultation was people who literally couldn't afford it. Maybe people who couldn't even pay the dollar trial to get the credit report for me to do the consultation in the first place. But everybody else bought. And what I realized is it was almost like that face-to-face conversation because it was a video. Know, like, and trust. They could do it on their own time. They weren't rushed. They weren't at McDonald's ordering McDonald's while we're talking about their credit, right? They could repeat the video over and over again. They thoroughly understood the process and understood it. Didn't have to worry about people saying I said something I didn't say and all that stuff. So the compliance level was much higher. There's a lot of things I got out of that. But the point is I went from 2 hours or more face to face to 30 to 45 minutes phone to 7 minutes. You see where I'm going? And nobody on my calendar because you couldn't get on my calendar. You didn't need to. Wake up in the morning, did all my consultation videos, done with the day, right? And so I encourage you, if you're not doing that, look at that. Look at your whole system. How can I simplify this? How can I automate it? How can I make it better? And so when I was doing all that, I thought, man, I'm not going to be I'm not providing as much value to clients. And what I found was the exact opposite. People found me more valuable because of the level of score plans. They were able to interact with me. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They weren't feeling like they were waiting for me to give them the next update. They got a video with me. They got to see my face. They got to see my emotion and that I was excited for them and excited with them, right? All of these things they got from me that they weren't getting from me before. Even though instead of spending 45 minutes on a phone call and then a bunch of work to have to create action plans and all this stuff for them, to automating the whole process. So literally after the first consultation, getting them started, I was spending about 5 minutes per client per month. It's pretty powerful, but giving them more value than I was spending hours on their file per month. I hope that makes sense for you. So this is exactly why Level Up Score exists, is this whole process that I constantly come back to is how do I eliminate unnecessary work? How do I automate things that I need? And I do those things. So I look at elimination and automation before I ever look at delegation. Elimination, automation, then delegation, right? And separating what you should be doing, what you should personally be doing versus what someone else can do. So I'll leave you with that. So I hope this was very helpful for you. These are the 5 things that I encourage you to do before you step into January 1, 2026. And I truly hope 2026 is a huge, huge year for you. Thank you.